This city creates its own kind of virtual reality. It has the greatest number of skyscrapers in the world, the highest population density, and is Southeast Asia's largest financial center. But while the city is a financial giant, it's also a prisoner of its own wealth. Property prices are astronomical. 1 square meter costs as much as $250,000. Despite this, 250,000 people live in squalid conditions that the UN describes as an affront to human dignity. The paradox is that Hong Kong ranks at the very top of the International Index of Economic Freedom. It boasts a high level of investment protection, minimal taxes and high wages. But at the same time, its 7 million population suffers from a shortage of living space. Hong Kong inherited this problem. For 99 years, it had been a British protectorate. The most important thing Chu has is his job. The city helps him keep his head above water. There's always something to do. Chu gets an old age pension of 3,000 Hong Kong dollars, roughly $400. To supplement this, he collects rubbish on the streets. But he doesn't know how much longer he'll be able to keep working.
睇咗幾十年啦，流鼻血啊嘛。 佢又冇講話係咪鼻咽癌，冇講。個醫生睇咗幾十年，咪我哋啲長期病患咯。
If Chu stops working, he won't be able to pay the rent. Although it puts him under a lot of strain, he's come to terms with the situation.
你有啲自由身㗎，你辛苦㗎，可以休1兩日息咯。 休2日息你要做㗎啦，因為你又唔好執咯，你唔執啊成世唔使做添，你一執啊你要成世都要做㗎啦。唔係淨係今日嘅，連埋9月4日㗎，2日啦，2日加埋啊。
Hong Kong is one of the most densely populated cities in the world, and some people have nowhere to live. It's a place where you can rent a cage in a room. Barely bigger than a dog kennel, these spaces measure 180 by 60 centimeters. Residents take their meals in their cages. A lock is a must because people leave their belongings there when they go to work. There's no kitchen, and the bathroom and toilet are in the corridor. A landlord nets up to $4,000 a month from just one room like this. Jan Haiming, a volunteer, provides help to people like these. For over 10 years, he himself lived in such conditions.
Hello， 你哋好啊，叔叔過嚟探下你哋啊。係啊，唔好意思啊，騷擾你哋。有班攝製隊嚟拍我嘅，唔係拍你哋嘅。係啊，係啊，外國俄羅斯攝製隊嚟嘅，叔叔請你哋食嘅。 一人一包啊！喂，一人一包。唔好拍啊！唔好拍，唔好。喂，唔可以拍啊！夾硬嚟㗎你哋。哦 ，no。喂，唔得㗎，唔得啊！哦，得，我同你講先。你咁樣夾硬嚟唔得㗎，喂。哦，揸完㗎。唔俾啊，係 no。你有冇睇呢度啊？喂。因為咧。
These people don't want any trouble. They're just afraid of being evicted.
因為咧，之前試過有啲組織咧，就係嗰啲社區組織協會嘅社工咧，就係試過咁樣咧，帶啲人去拍攝佢哋啲屋之後咧，就報紙登咗之後咧，即係電視機登咗之後，政府就係咁即係對呢啲房屋要拆啊，成日因為冇防火裝置啊，成日同埋依家香港規範呢個叫棺材房，即係管制得好犀利啦都。
Nearly half of Hong Kong's population lives in public housing that is subsidized by the government. Rents are between $100 and $300 a month. But to live in a place like this, you have to get on a waiting list.
萬幾人嘅都有啲，有萬幾人嘅就有萬幾人住呢啲屋㗎，因為你申請公屋難啊嘛，你申請政府樓係話單身人士3年就上到樓，其實唔止，單身人士要等10年以上未必上到樓，同埋好多時等上樓等到無了期啊，有啲選擇瞓街，等上樓等到死喺條街嘅度都有嘅。
But we have a problem, and the problem is that it is now a very expensive city. Why is it so expensive? It's a combination of two things. It's expensive because we're successful. Everybody wants to come here. But also we're a small city. We don't have a lot of land. So what makes it happen is that the cost of living, this means that people have to live in smaller and smaller and smaller homes. So small that sometimes we call them coffin homes. Every year, the government needs to make money, so they have to sell more land. That land, who would buy that land? It would be private developers. And private developers, because they have to make a business, they have to make something that is going to make them a profit. So it's like a circle that gets more and more and more expensive every year.
Now, 依家佢取消咗嗰個即係一個租約先係租務啊嚇。以前英國有租務管理，即係租務條例管治，即係啲房啊、啲鋪啊唔能夠隨便加租。依家繁榮晒，揾錢晒，就全部啲大資本家揾晒錢。即係譬如我講句新話咧，即係好似世界上。我覺得上香港嚟都好差，嗰時真係好差，知唔知？但依家咧佢管治得好，真係依家係好好多。
呢度瞓覺地方，呢度瞓覺，啲撈舊嘢嚟嘅，正式係垃圾缸啊！唉，嗰度廚房，呢度廚房，呢個電飯煲，廁所呢度。
Chu is single. He's never had a family.
冇啊，冇，我都冇拍過拖，冇識過女仔。玩咩啊？間屋咁細啊，點樣俾人住啊？你自己瞓咗，人哋都冇地方瞓啦，玩伴。唉，自己自量下啦。你都冇錢養人哋啊！
Almost 250,000 people in Hong Kong live in conditions like these. One 10 to 12 square metre room must contain all a person needs.
唔係劏房，劏房唔係咁樣嘅。1978年買嘅間屋，1979年又入伙，嗰陣時樓價69,930蚊。
Over the years, the value of Chu's flat has increased almost 30-fold. But it hasn't changed anything. Chu hasn't become richer.
如果而家賣翻出去嘅話，幾錢啊？呢度？
佢頂晒眼咪俾200萬你。
200萬啊！
咪揸住嗰200萬，你都唔買得到第二度噶啦。
Another reason he never had a family was that Chu used to live here with his mother. She got very sick with cancer, and Chu looked after her.
我媽媽嗰間屋契兩仔啦個名，而家阿媽死咗， 剩翻我咯。政府佢生前嗰幾個月啊，佢日日去醫院睇佢，唉，搞到我自己都抑鬱啦，我都想自殺，不過我冇自殺，冇，我諗住仲有個妹喺度，嗰個自殺死咗，剩翻個妹，又唔忍心咁啊，唔死啫嘛。
The rapid increase of housing and rental prices in Hong Kong created a new class, so-called McSleepers, people who spend the night in fast food restaurants. Most of them have jobs, but they come here to sleep after the working day to save money on rent. No one pays attention to them. It's become a usual sight in Hong Kong.
我嗰份工係做飲食行業嘅，咁就月入16,000蚊啦。香港就個制度就係員工係要扣 MBF 嘅，有陣時收工好攰啊，都唔知想去邊。咁就瞓麥當勞，我26歲結婚，26歲結婚個女，咁離咗婚嘅啦，冇一齊住，亦都冇見面。跟住我做咗偏門嘅嘢啦，黃色事業，跟住就坐過監啦，然之後行翻條正路咯，去做翻個正行咯。之後識咗一個女朋友，亦都同我喺埋過一齊10年啦，分咗手。即係都有陣時見到人哋有一個美滿嘅家庭啊，或者係關於我工作上方面咧，以前做餐廳嘅，見到人哋生日啊，即係自己一個人啊，好孤獨啊，有陣時眼淚在心裏流咯，冇人知啊。呢啲係啊，情緒好低落嘅時候，我都會揾朋友去傾訴下嘅，就冇諗過自殺嗰方面啊，唔會有咯嚇有手有腳，亦都唔會餓得死嘅。
A third of Hong Kong's population lives in rooms that are 12, 10, and sometimes just 5 square meters, which are what they call subdivided flats.
There's 4 rooms here. The first room, the one staying there is like an old man, like 65 years old or 70 years old, living alone. And then the next room is 2 ladies, Filipina also.
Chris pays 4,500 Hong Kong dollars in rent, a third of his salary.
My origin is from Philippines, and I'm staying here in Hong Kong since 1998. But we have a baby already. It's a baby boy, which is named also from my name. So, Junior, it's in Junior. Also, Chris Kayabyab. It's very tough to have a baby here. Actually, most of the Chinese citizens here, they will have one baby only during their like 45 years old or 40 because of situation here. Everything is expensive. I have a sister and a younger brother, which during our university years, we're all in a university, and for us to go to university is like already like huge already, and cannot afford. So my sister and brother, we talked together, and then we decided that one should stop, and they chose me. Actually, I don't want to stop. My son will be like that bright to go to university. It's like I only work. I work, and then my son is bright, so can go to university.
This crisis in housing actually has an effect on family planning. You know, I think a lot of people realize that their life is so expensive and they cannot live in a big home. They realize if they have children, they cannot provide the space for them. They cannot afford it. So they decide not to have children.
After the birth of his son, Chris became eligible to apply for state-subsidized housing. If his application is approved, this is what his flat will look like. According to official estimates, they'll have to wait for between 5 and 7 years, or maybe even 10, before they can move into this corner of paradise. In 2018, the Hong Kong government acknowledged the magnitude of the problem and announced targeted housing development programs. One of the most ambitious projects was presented by Hong Kong's Chief Executive, Carrie Lam, speaking about the construction of artificial islands.
涵蓋中部水域交椅洲同埋喜靈洲附近合共約1700公頃嘅人工島，可以提供26萬到40萬住屋單位，可以供70萬到110萬人居住。
The first housewarming party should be thrown in 2032. Most of the dwellings will be allocated to social housing projects.
Majority of people in Hong Kong, more than 60–70% of the people in Hong Kong cannot afford the private housing. So you have 70% of the people trying to chase for the 40% of housing. And people are getting older here in Hong Kong. There's an aging population. So there's more older people who are poor having to stay in the public housing. They stay longer in the public housing.
佢揾俾我自己繼續住咯，一個，佢俾我，我話講，我自己喺呢度咁一個。
點解你冇老婆啊？即係冇唔結婚啊？
我自己都冇工作勤力點結婚啊？老媽子老豆死咗，我都幫我唔到。我妹細兩個，我唔係最大，我排第3。我唔係我得咁講，我做嘢唔係緊急㗎。我唔係成日去得有工去噶嘛，即係我老豆即係遇到啲師傅有嘢做咧，開工嘅，我又出去幫下手，有嘢揾我，我又唔得閒，我唔去咁樣嘛，咁咯。你套房你食飯都冇錢，你有份嘢做又唔開工開唔足，咁邊個幫我？唔係我自己大把錢啫嘛，我政府我每個月租，我個月租就係1毫，唔係咁坐喺度咯，一住冇乜嘢，我咁坐。即係瞓就唔係淨係瞓嘅咁咯啊，咁咯。唔係咁而家嗰啲，我而家呢啲樓啊，我唔好，即係我即係講俾你聽啊。而家啲咁呢啲架步啲地方樓啊，我唔好想住咯啊。佢呢啲嗰個位入邊，即係雜啊，好嘈啊。其實你好多有啲野老鼠，地下又會執。俾我啊，俾我用啊，我冇知啊，種咩？
係明白啦，3年啊，哇！呢啲人對我都認啊，
我有賺多咗我。
係 Đây cái này này. Cho nhà suối cho nha, cho nhà nha. Cái này xe này, màu vàng xía này. Đấy, cho cả cái xe buýt này nữa này, mặt này. Mua nhiều cái. Đấy,
làm cho nó buồn nó lạnh này.
Trên này cái xe ra, trên này cái xe ra, mặt trong biết là
để ai không, để luôn mặt để hàng này.
Welcome to the OPOD concrete house. Now, the concept of the OPOD concrete house is we try to make one of the world's most inexpensive house, but we make it in a clever way by using concrete water pipe. This concrete water pipe is a standard water pipe that we convert into a small house of 100 square feet. This front part is for living, and the second pipe at the back is with the toilet and with the kitchen. So here in the living part, we have some shelving for the TV, for the books, etc. We have a small storage area for hanging your clothes, putting your luggage. And all of this component comes from the rubbish of a construction site. It is about 10,000 euros for the cost of the whole house, including all of the furniture, the toilet, and the concrete pipes. And it is transportable. We basically lift them up on the truck, deliver it somewhere, and put it down onto the ground. I'm very happy that the Hong Kong government has shown me a lot of support and has come to me and said, would you like to try to use the OPOD in the real way to help people? So they have now granted me a piece of land in the city of Hong Kong, and they granted to me for $1. And it will be the first time that we make this kind of building in Hong Kong on a piece of land that is left over. And one day there might be tens of thousands of these in different locations in Hong Kong or even around the world.
%20 of Hong Kong's population lives below the poverty line. According to official figures, their income is less than $512 per person a month.
Là 香港咧地少人多，啲有錢人咧就買咗嚟擺，要嚟炒高啲樓，即係等啲價錢高啲佢先放。咁我哋打工嘅邊有可能買到啊？幾百萬一層樓，你要做幾耐啊？計數都計到啦。你幾千蚊一個月，或者你1萬蚊個月，你除咗食。
Lee Wing-kyung gets an old age pension of 3,000 Hong Kong dollars. Until he got injured, he used to work as a janitor in an office building.
嗰陣時我係返即係清潔嘅，咁我拱開道門反彈返嚟咧就拍到，當時係腫起少少嘅啫。後尾咧去睇醫生嗰陣時，嗰陣咧個醫生咧就話我條筋霉咗啊，一定要割，一係就咁樣咳落去。我話唔想啊咁樣，咁佢跟住就割咗我條筋，喺度開刀咯。
Lee Wing-kyung wants his ashes to be scattered at sea. It's the cheapest funeral by Hong Kong standards.
我爸爸個墳咧就喺最高嗰度咧，就我大伯父啊，即係我爸爸嘅阿哥，我爸爸嘅阿媽都係連埋一齊㗎啦。咁佢咧嗰度咧就望到海嘅。如果如果海葬咧，佢咪望到我咯。
50,000 people die every year in this megacity of millions of inhabitants. By 2023, there'll be a shortfall of 400,000 burial spaces. Today, Chu is picking up his mother's ashes. He was supposed to do it a long time ago, but he needed to pay off his public utility debts and the fees for keeping the ashes in a columbarium. Now he can afford it.
好，個鐘邊埋嚟，睇下先，你唔識呢個係啦，係，拎翻去先，就唔好解啦。
唔解啦，你唔睇咩？
我睇睇下，係咪上次嗰個？
你唔好影我咯，鏡嚇，影咗你個，我攞俾你啦。
係啦係啦。
嗱，睇一睇啲字啊。
照門樓歸廟靈座，1930年，2018年6月18日。
One of Chu's sisters bought a niche for the urn, but as happens in Hong Kong, even though it was paid for, people nonetheless have to go on a waiting list. The living wait for the dead.
食物環境衞生署批咗先至上得位嘅，喺新界青松仙冠嗰度啊，4個人個位啊，我自己仲有個妹，有個妹夫，咪4個人咯，拉埋阿媽。
Chu is taking the urn back to his place. It can stay in his flat for as long as he's fit enough to collect rubbish. Chu views his job as a form of punishment, and tomorrow he will face the Hong Kong streets again.
咁你信唔信？即係可能死咗之後，我哋可能會去天堂或者過一啲更加……
我唔好啦，我成日打落18層地獄，永不超生嘅啫。
點解啊？
我都唔係好人嚟嘅，壞人。我當我自己唔係好人㗎，我當我自己壞人啊！罪孽深重添啊，仲要罪無可恕，死罪又唔可以免，活罪又唔能夠饒恕，永不超生。